Hello and welcome to episode 113 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet and my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is October 11th, 2021. And today I'm wearing one of my Martina Behm shawls. So I'm sure most of you know Martina Behm. She's a German knitwear designer who's who has very new ideas, and she always comes up with new constructions and new ways of doing things, which is really interesting. And I know that she was one of the first designers to use this shape of shawl where you start at one of the corners of your triangle and then you increase and then you stop off one of the increases and you finish off the other side of the triangle. And with this design, which is called Braids Made, you have this braid or this cable pattern that you knit in the middle of your shawl. And then because the increases stop at some point, on your other end of the shawl, the same cable ends up being on the side of the shawl, which I think is really funny and interesting. So these are the two ends of the shawl, and the cable pattern is reversible, so it's a nice cable on both sides of the shawl, which I think is a great idea because it means you don't have to pay too much attention on how you wear your shawl. It will always look nice. And this is what the shawl looks like. So this is the end that you start on and you increase, and then you stop the increases on this side, and then the cable moves to the edge of the shawl. And then for the rest of the shawl, it just runs along the edge, which I think is really funny. I think this end is a bit too long, especially as I'm not very tall. So if I were to knit it again, I would probably, I would decrease the stitches more quickly than the pattern calls for, so that this end would end up being a bit shorter. But it's just my personal preference. I still love the shawl. I think it's very beautiful. It's a very nice yarn. It's very soft. Yeah, and the color goes with my new pullover. So this is last week's finished object. Is my granny square pullover, where I have one big granny square in the front and one big granny square in the back, and then two little squares for the sleeves. And I crocheted all the edges together. I left a little slit on the sides. Even though it's wide enough, it would have fit even if I had crocheted it together all the way down. Yeah, so I'm really happy with how that fits. And yeah, I thought this shawl would look nicely. They would go together well. I really have a bit of a problem today finding my words. I hope you don't mind. Okay, so that's what I'm wearing today. Then on to finished objects. I think I will have to stand up again in a minute because my first finished object is really big, and that's the crochet jacket that I test crocheted for Heather from HG Designs Crochet, and the test is officially over now. I know that not all testers have completely finished their cardigans, but I think that's okay. We've given quite a bit of feedback, and I hope that helps Heather finish off the pattern so that she can go on and publish it, so that you all can get a copy if you want to. Just remember, she doesn't sell her patterns on Ravelry, so if you want to get a copy of her pattern, you have to go to her own homepage, and you can find her by just looking for HGDC, or you can go through the link underneath my video. If you use my link, if you buy a pattern through that link, I will get a little something as a thank you from Heather. Yeah, so that's just how you can get the pattern. This is the whole cardigan. This is about 900 grams of yarn, not quite, it's just a bit less than 900 grams, but it's a lot of yarn. And it's a really big, heavy, cozy, chunky cardigan. I'm really happy with it. So last time I already showed you all the squares that had been attached, and I'd finished one sleeve. Now both sleeves are finished, And then the next thing I did was the bottom band that has to be crocheted by itself and then is sewn on, or rather crocheted onto the main body. So this is, here you can see where I crocheted it on. That wasn't too easy. I had to undo it several times to get the right width. So at first I was holding it too close together, and then it sort of looked like that. So I had to undo it again, but then I managed to do it the right way. And then for the front band, you crochet onto this bit that you did with the bottom band, and then you crochet along like this, and you attach it as you go. So that's a lot easier. And then I just crocheted all the way up and around and then down the front, and then just crochet those two pieces together, so the front band and the bottom band get crocheted together in the end, and then the cardigan is done. And I think I'll be wearing it next week, unless it gets really warm next week, which I don't think it will. But yeah, so the test is over. Maybe I will wait to wear the jacket until the pattern is released. I might do that. That will remind me to let you know that the pattern has been released and you can get your own copy. I think that's a good idea. Yeah, so that's my first finished object. And even though it's a really big and heavy cardigan, it didn't really take that long to make it, because I was using a 10mm crochet hook, which is huge, and I was using the what in German is called 8-ply sock yarn, which is like, it's like 2 strands of normal sock yarn held together. So I doubled that one, so it's like 4 strands of normal sock yarn held together, and that's why the crocheting was really quick and the stitches are really big. Yeah, and I love it. I could imagine making another one in other colors at some point in time. We'll see about that. So that was my big finished object, and then I have a little one, and that's Sarah Shearer's mystery gnome. It's the 7th mystery gnome that she's published. The pattern is called All Work Gnome Play, and I think it's not a secret anymore. It's not a mystery anymore, because all the pieces have been published, and I think everybody has started showing their finished object pictures. So yeah, I think I don't have to hide him anymore, or her. I think she's she, forgot her name, but yeah, that's her in all her bright neon glory. So it's quite interesting with the mystery gnomes. Sarah always tries to hide what things are as we knit them. So the first 4 little pieces that we knit were those 3 ornaments for the hat and the nose. So the biggest thing that we knit in the first clue was actually her nose. That's fairly big, but that's because she works in an ice cream place and she needs to be able to smell all the wonderful flavors of her ice cream. And the hat is supposed to look a bit like a soft ice cream cone. And she's wearing gloves. She's wearing gloves because her hands get really cold working with the ice cream. And or mittens, is it mittens or gloves? I don't know. But you can see the tiny little thumbs, and it's so funny. And then the braids, you could either use several strands of yarn and just do a proper braid. I don't know. Oh, braid. Funny. Anyway, but this is a knit cable. So I actually cast on 6 stitches and I knit a cable for her hair. And she doesn't have a beard, but she's the second gnome without a beard. So it's not quite a shock, quite such a shock anymore. The way it was with the first gnome that didn't have a beard. Yeah, so that's her. Sarah actually designed tiny little ice cream cones that you can knit with 2 scoops of ice cream. And anyone who has the pattern for the gnome gets the ice cream pattern for free. Otherwise, you can go ahead and buy the pattern for the ice cream cones. I do want to knit her some ice creams. I didn't get around to doing that last week, so maybe I can do that this week, and then I can show you those once I get them done. But I think the idea is fantastic. And you can use those little ice cream cones and make earrings. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll make some for her and some for myself. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah, but that's the mystery gnome. That's my second finished object for this week. And that's all the finished objects I'm going to show you today. And I'm really, really happy. The yarn is by Wolldackel, a German hand dyer. And it was part of my advent calendar last year. And it's the second project I've made with that yarn. And the first one was also a gnome. It's time I did something else. I'm planning to do a cowl, another Martina Behm pattern. It's called Tubularity. So I've planned on using several of the mini skeins for that. And I'm also planning a cardigan by Telly Bean Knits. Forgot the name. I'll let you know once I start knitting it. It'll be a black cardigan, but I'm going to use the minis for the fronts, for the edge of the cardigan. Yeah, but I'll tell you all about that once I start. So that was the mystery gnome. It was a lot of fun as always, and it's always so interesting to start knitting and you don't know what it's going to be and what things are going to look like. And I just love the fun and the tiny little things, and you're done really quickly, but it's all a bit fiddly. I just love doing that. Yeah, then on to works in progress. As usual, I start with my socks. And last week I actually knit on the Madeline socks again. This is the last pattern of the Sockmadness that I'm still knitting on. I haven't done the last round's socks, but this was the second to last round. Must have been round 6. It's an all over colorwork pattern that doesn't ever repeat. It's a really long leg, so the leg has 80 rounds if you do the whole thing, and I did rounds 41 to 50. So I try to knit 10 rounds every week, hoping to finish the socks by Christmas so I can give them to my cousin who they fit. And this is sock number 2. Did the 10 rounds. Can't really see a big difference to last time I showed them. Wasn't last week, but several weeks ago. And I'll try and work on them as often as possible. So that's that. Then I'm working on one of the bonus patterns, the Marbon Morn socks. I am using blue yarn to knit them. And I finished the first sock. I've done the cuff of the second socks, and I've misplaced my beads. I don't know where I put them. So I just have to take some time and go through all my stuff very thoroughly. They're probably in some of my project bags, but I have so many bags and I keep shuffling things around a lot, and I just couldn't find the beads when I wanted to knit on the socks, so I just put them to the side and knit something else. That's the reason I didn't knit on them. But maybe that's how I got to knit on the Madeline socks, so that's okay. The third pair of socks that's on my needles are the socks for my sister. These are spiral socks knit out of one strand of alpaca lace yarn and one strand of mohair silk yarn, and I finished the first sock. Last week I knit as far as I thought I needed to knit, but then my sister tried them on and we decided I'm going to add several more repeats of the pattern, and then I did the toe. The wooden feet that I have are really big, so my sister's feet are quite a bit smaller, so on her the leg is longer and it's the size that she likes to have. And I'm really glad that the first one's done, and I've started the second one, but I'm still on the cuff, and this is how far I got with the second sock. And I've already started on the knit 3 purl 3 pattern, but I usually do a little bit of a cuff before I start rotating the pattern so that it gets the spiral pattern, which makes them to be spiral socks, and you don't need a heel. So that's why the sock fits this foot, but it also fits my sister. And when she wants to wear them when she hikes and when she sleeps in her tent, and then it means she doesn't have to check which side is up or down if she wants to put them on during the night or in her sleeping bag. So she can just slip them over and they'll fit any which way. So that's all the socks, but I have one tiny project That's not sock yarn, but it's a bit like sock yarn, so I'll show them now. And that's the wrist warmers that I'm knitting out of Hansa Farm's new yarn, which is a mix of alpaca and silk. And last week I started the first one and I finished the first one. It's a lot shorter than it's in the book, but I didn't think I needed them too long. And like this, they're just nice to keep the wrist warm. You can pull them over your fingers a little bit and still have your wrist warm, or you could pull them down a little bit. You could put them underneath your sleeve. So I thought it's a nice length to just quickly throw on, and it meant I could finish it sooner, and I have it in my shop as a sample, and people can touch it and can try it on, and it's so soft. And as I said before, it's a lot smoother than the normal alpaca yarn because of the silk content, so it really does make a difference in how it feels. But yeah, it's just such a nice feeling, and I really, really like it, and I can't wait to use the yarn a lot more. And this is the second one, so I finished the cuff part, and I finished the part with the darker grey. So I think I have to knit 2 rounds of black, and then I can start with a light grey pattern. And then there's something else I want to show you concerning the company Hansa Farm. As I said, it's a little company in Hamburg. It's a couple. He's German and she's from Peru, and they work closely together with the people in Peru to produce their alpaca yarn. And they produce these little mini alpacas that are just little toys, but in producing these alpacas, they give jobs to women who otherwise wouldn't have a job, and all the money they make with selling these alpacas goes into a children's home in Peru. So you really do something good when you buy them, and you have a sweet little toy that you can either keep or give away. And the first time I showed them on my video, I wrote them an email just letting them know I'm showing them on the video. Maybe you will have an increase in your orders, I don't know, but I just wanted to let you know. And by the way, wouldn't you like to make a blue one? Because deep ocean is my favorite color in your yarn, from your yarn, and I think that'd be a good idea. And then the owner of the company wrote back to me and he said, thank you for showing them on your video, and we're really grateful that you're doing it. And yes, more people are ordering the alpacas. And no, we're not planning to make blue ones, but we'll have one made just for you. And I thought that was so sweet, and I had no idea when they would get round to doing that. And when I got the order with the new colors and the new yarn, they weren't in there. So I thought, well, who knows, maybe he forgot about it, or maybe they just didn't have the yarn or whatever. But then last week I got an email and he told me, remember the blue alpaca that we promised you? It arrived, or they arrived, because they actually made 2 of them, and he sent them to me. And they're just for me. They're not planning on making any more of those, but these are so sweet. They really go well with what I'm wearing. This is just my favorite color, and the color is called Deep Ocean, and it's a mix of dark blue and dark gray. I think the color on the screen is a bit lighter than the reality. It's a bit more blue and a bit less green, but I think you get an idea of having that's several colors that are just mixed together beautifully. And I've used that color to knit stuff before, and I will use it again definitely. And I have my own 2 alpacas now. And when he first wrote to me that I was going to get 2 of them, I was thinking maybe I'll keep one and give one away. But now that I've seen them, I can't give them away. So the plan is one of them will live here in the shop, and one of them will live at my home. So I will have a blue alpaca in both places, and I'll take 1 or 2 other alpacas home with me, so he won't be by himself, because I think they prefer to live in a herd. So if you want to buy them, I encourage you to buy several, because they don't like to be by themselves. But one is better than none, so do whatever you like. But I thought it was just so sweet. And also when I opened the package, there weren't just the 2 alpacas. There was a package of yarn, alpaca yarn. in a different color, and he wrote to me, well, we needed to pack them safely, so we just threw in some yarn, and that was so nice. And I'll show you the yarn when I start knitting with it. I'll make something special out of that yarn, because it was the yarn that was sent to me to protect my blue alpacas. Yeah, so just a little something in between. On with my works in progress. I worked on almost all the projects I'm currently working on. I have some works in progress that are sort of asleep and I haven't touched in a while, but I think most of the things that I'm actually have worked on lately, I did some work on. So the oldest, no, I won't start with the oldest. I'll show you by size. I'll start with the smallest and then I'll go in increasing size. Okay, that means the loop has to come first. This is the cowl I'm knitting out of the book Knit Happy with Self-Striping Yarn. And I'm using the Opal yarn that I bought in Japan. It's these beautiful, somewhat rainbowy colors. Did a blue ribbing, then used this yarn to do the main body of the cowl. And as you can see, the yarn's almost gone. And I've measured it today, and I've decided I'm going to add one more pattern repeat. That's about, it's like from here to here, that's one pattern repeat. So I will do one more pattern repeat. That means I will have a little yarn left to put in my blanket, and then I'll do another blue ribbing, and then the cowl will be done. So I'm looking forward to doing that and having that to wear. Then the next project I'm knitting is a triangular shawl by Romy. It's out of her book. I keep forgetting what the title of the book is. Something with open spaces, and it's new lace patterns. Something with new lace patterns, and it's called Town Square Shawl, and I'm using this Opal subscription yarn, and it's the color for the last pattern battle. By the way, I forgot to check the new pattern battle. We had a new parcel arrive in September, and I haven't checked out, and maybe I've missed my chance to vote, but yeah, I'll do that at some point, and I'll probably join in again with the pattern battle, even though I haven't even finished this one. Yeah, but last time I showed you, I'd finished this bit of the pattern with the nups and the lace bit, and now we're kind of repeating this pattern, but whereas the pattern repeat was, I think, both sides of the triangle, it repeated this pattern 27 times. This time it was 61 times, both sides. So it took a really long time to get this this pattern repeat done, or this row done. Now it's I've done one of the reverse stockinette rows. There's 2 more to follow, and then I will have finished this chart, and then there's a big lace chart that comes at the end, and then I don't know how it finishes off, but I know I have to do these 2 rows, 2 rows, and then there's the big lace pattern that's following. So it's still a bit of work to be done, but I'm happy that I've continued knitting on it and still enjoy the colors a lot, enjoy the pattern a lot. So that's really nice. So the next biggest project is the square shrug that I'm knitting. So basically right now I'm knitting a big square, and I've just finished the second ball of yarn. So I stopped so I could show this is how far I got with 200 grams of Opal sock yarn, and I put in a second cable, but it's way too small. I thought of putting a third cable in, but then the other adapter that I have to combine the cables is in the other project that I'm going to show you in a minute. So I thought with this second cable, at least I can show you the side, one of the sides of the square. and then you can just use your imagination to imagine the other 4 sides being as big. So this is, yeah, getting along nicely, and the plan is to finish it off somehow, and then I'm going to fold it in half, and I will knit some part of that side on both sides. I will sew that together, and then I'll knit some ribbing on the armholes, and I'll knit a ribbing on the front and back, and then I'll have a sort of shrug or little jacket or bolero jacket, whatever you might call it. Yeah, so I had planned on using 3 balls of yarn. So now that I finished the second one, I think what I'm going to do is add just 1 more pattern repeat. I've almost finished the pattern repeat that I was working on. Let me see, depending on what the colors are, it's harder or easier to see. So you can see I'm knitting these, is it called diamonds? But whatever it's called, it's almost closed. So there's 2 more rounds that I need to finish this pattern off. So I'll add 1 more pattern repeat on top, and then I'll do the whole thing about folding and sewing and knitting, ribbing and so on. Yeah, but that's getting along nicely, but the rows are getting really, really long. So it takes quite some time to do the pattern rows. And then in between I have the rest row where I just knit all the stitches and yarn overs. So it's a nice mix of having to concentrate and being able to do something else while I'm knitting these rounds. Yeah, so that's that. And then the next biggest project is my Glacial Tunic or dress, a pattern by Jorge Locatelli. Last week I showed, you've seen the topper and the sleeves quite a few times now. Last week when I showed it to you, I'd started knitting with the 5th color. I was still alternating between color 4 and 5, and now I've finished those transition rounds, and I'm on to just knitting row 5, and this is where I put the other cable in. So I have another one of these adapters here so that you can see what it looks like, because once it's bunched up on the needle it's really hard to see. And also mainly I put the cable in so I could try the dress on. I was a bit worried it might get too long, and I didn't want it to hit the ground when I was wearing it, but it's not that long at all. So this bit is like, it's probably not even mid-thigh, so it's quite a bit over my knee, and this just hits my knee or a bit below the knee. So even though, yeah, so what I'm probably going to do is just knit the same amount of rows with the color 5 that I did for color 2, 3 and 4, just by themselves, and then I will do some sort of edge, probably in garter stitch so that it won't roll. That's the plan. Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to wearing this now that the weather's getting colder and I'm getting closer to finishing it. But the same as with the other 2 projects, the rows are getting longer because I am increasing stitches regularly to make sure it's wide enough, and to make sure I have enough room to move once I wear the dress. Yeah, so it takes longer, but I'm also getting more impatient, and yeah, we'll see how long it's going to take me to finish them off. Yeah, so that's all the big projects, and that brings me to the knit-alongs that we're doing on this channel, and one of them is the Geckolino. It's a little shawlette. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. I finished the first one I knitted out of hand-dyed yarn, and I started a second one using Opal 6-ply or DK weight or whatever you will call it. It's 150 grams and it has 420 meters, and I'm just doing a second Geckolino using a 5mm needle, and I have cast on fewer stitches because I'm using thicker yarn, and I'm doing fewer rows of garter stitch, but the lace pattern I'm doing the way it's written in the pattern. And I finished the second bit of garter stitch, and I'm on the, I think I finished the eyelet row, and now I have to purl back, and then I'm back to knitting several rows of garter stitch. Yep, so that's the second Geckolino I'm working on. I used a color with green in it so I can donate it to the organization who help women with ovarian cancer, and they usually ask for green socks, but I was told that we can donate other stuff as well as long as there's green in it and women can wear it and it keeps them warm. So that's what I'm planning to do with that. And the other knit along that we are working on, the year-long knit along, is the Optic Blanket, and I finished the square that I was working on last week. I think that was this one. And I started and finished this square. So I actually managed to do 1.5 squares. That brings this piece up to 6 squares. I will add 3 more squares on this piece, and then I will have to do 1 more of this 9 squares. And then I will have 6 of these and I can sew them together. And my plan is to have the blanket finished by the end of the year so I can start a new blanket with the beginning of the next year. You can never have too many blankets, and that's what I think. Yeah, this is the same kind of yarn that I'm using for this Geckolino, so it's what we call 6-ply yarn, and I think it's a nice weight and thickness in the garter stitch. Yeah, so that's everything I knit on and crocheted on last week. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!